Senator Gregg.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Well, let me join with everyone else on this commission thanking you, the chairman, and your extraordinary staff for what you've done. First, in the way you've managed these meetings, that has been intense and constant, and it's been thorough, informative, and substantive. And I congratulate you for your leadership. It's been a tremendous benefit for this nation. I also want to thank the folks who've been on the commission. I mean, this is a pretty talented group of people. I mean, I don't want to say that about myself, but accepting myself, and maybe Ken, it's a pretty talented. The time and commitment has been extraordinary, and the thought process and the ideas brought to the table have been exceptional. As I look at this, this is about America's greatness. We are the most exceptional nation in the world. And the world's looking at us and they're saying, how could such an exceptional nation have gotten in such trouble? How could we be on a path which is essentially going to drive us into some form of bankruptcy? It'll be an unusual form of bankruptcy, but it'll be a form of bankruptcy because our debt will be unsustainable and our capacity to pay the interest on that debt will threaten the value of our currency and the lifestyle of every American. This is about Main Street. But it's about where we go as a country. And we, as the people who are charged with the governance, have a responsibility to not let that happen. And you can't deny the facts. We are on a course which, because of the demographic shift in this culture, where we go from 35 million retired people to 70 million retired people over the next 5 to 7 years, and for other reasons, which have generated a little bit of a debate around this table, our government is growing at a rate that is simply unaffordable and unsustainable. And the inevitable fact is that if it continues on this course, prosperity for Americans will be jeopardized, and we will be the first generation in the history of this country to pass a less prosperous and secure nation on to our children. And that is antithetical to the American culture. The American culture demands that the next generation have more opportunity and be more secure than the prior generation. That's just the essence of what America is about. And so this really is about America's greatness. Now, this product is not perfect, nor is it global. It doesn't even solve the problem. It just allows us to put in place a glide path, or not a glide path, but a pathway that says to Americans and the world, we are serious about doing something about the problem. The problem will still be there, even if everything in this proposal were adopted, because we'd still have a debt to GDP ratio between 60 and 70% by 2020, which is way above our historical position, which should be no more than 40% if we're going to be really solvent. But it is a package which does make a definitive step in the right direction, because it does significantly reduce the deficit and the debt, and it does bend the increase in debt in the out years, and it does bring down the deficit. And it addresses glaring problems with our fiscal policy. Now, on the spending side of the ledger, on the discretionary side, I think Republicans are going to be pretty comfortable with this, I would hope. I mean, it goes down to 2008 baseline by 2013. That's a rather dramatic action. And there's going to be a lot of folks who are going to be upset about programmatic cuts and changes. The tax policy becomes, I think, the big issue for those of us on our side of the aisle, because there is a lot of tax policy in this bill that generates revenue. And how the revenue is used is the issue. I have always found it unconscionable that we debate constantly about raising rates. Why do we debate about raising rates? That's not the issue in tax policy. What we should be debating about is reducing rates, and how you reduce rates in a way that generates economic growth. And so this proposal in this bill, the essence of it, the core of it, almost all the revenues in this bill, with the exception of the Social Security, which is held in a separate account, is driven by a tax policy which takes us out of this box of debating whether or not we're going to raise rates and into what I think is the proper playing field, which is how you get rates down dramatically and allow money to be invested for the purposes of creating prosperity and economic activity rather than to be invested for the purposes of avoiding taxes. And the zero plan is the ultimate, on steroids, Reagan-Bradley tax reform. I was on the Ways and Means Committee in '86 when we did Reagan-Bradley, and it took a lot of heavy lifting to eliminate that stuff and get those rates down to 28, top rate down to 28%. This takes that approach and puts it in overdrive. I happen to think if we did the zero plan, the explosion in economic activity in this country would be extraordinary. And the tax numbers in this bill would be almost irrelevant. And that's why Senator Crapo has insisted, because I think he sees that also, that to the extent that happens, the rates continue to go down. But the fact is, this is where the debate should be, in my opinion. It shouldn't be on whether we take the rates from 35% to 39% or 39% to 42%. It should be on whether we take the rates from 35% to 21% and get in the process a better tax law that delivers a more effective use of dollars for capital formation in this country. So I think as Republicans, even though there's going to be heartburn about where these proceeds go, because they are going to be a lot of proceeds, it is the right debate. Social Security, as Senator Conrad says, and it has been an honor and privilege to work with Senator Conrad as chairman of the Budget Committee. It was even a bigger honor to work with him when he was the ranking member on the Budget Committee. As he has driven really the effort here to try to recognize the regular order can't handle this issue and that we have to step outside it, which is why this commission was created. But Social Security has been set off here and made solvent for 75 years, and you can tinker with the ways it was done, but there are only 4 or 5 moving parts in Social Security, and everybody knows we got to address it. But the issue of spending restraint and tax policy in this bill, I think, is moving dramatically in the right direction. The only issue remains health care. There is health care initiative in here, but we've been through the health care debate. We're going to have to revisit it at some point. This commission, I think, made the right decision in not going to the core of the health care debate, but doing some substantive things which will significantly impact health care. In the end, whether this commission gets 14, 10, or 16 votes, I think this document becomes the memo that controls the meeting, to use Henry Kissinger's words. And in the end, today, we've reached a point where it's time to govern. It's that simple. We either as a nation govern or we risk losing our greatness. And this is a template for beginning that governance. And I congratulate you for it, and I intend to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.